Okay, I'm David Polka. Graduated from UNM's Fine Art Department last year. My junior year, I was just like, I'd always done art. My parents are artists, and like, it was always a big part of my life, but it was never like a career choice until high school. And I was real into graffiti, and then I had an art teacher that just sort of pushed me real hard my junior year to sort of go beyond that. As you saw street art versus graffiti start to come onto the scene too, like the wheat pasting posters, like stencils, all that kind of stuff, that made it more accessible. And also graffiti has become very mainstream now as an aesthetic, and so that all kind of went hand in hand. And you had a lot of galleries who were starting to look at these artists who were moving from the street into the galleries, or at least starting to make that push. I think with some of them, not all of them, but there's definitely sort of a like semi-cohesive movement of a lot of people who are in a similar like age range that all grew up on the same kind of diet of like graffiti and skateboarding and hip hop and punk. And so that all kind of blends together, and everyone's work ends up looking different, but it all comes from this sort of like base set of influences. It's the same.
Oh man, there's too much paint on here.
I have done collage a little bit, and I've always really tried to make sure that the collage elements don't scream collage. Like, it's not, you can't tell that it's like a bunch of layered paper. Like, if I want to use them more like shapes, like a few of these have sections of paper, like the wing on that one, that was just cut in that leaf shape, and so like, it's obvious that it's paper, but it still functions stylistically the way the rest of the ink does. The breakthrough for the figurative stuff, because it was the sort of thing where I was like, man, screw it, I'm just gonna try it. If it turns out, cool. If not, and I started from this like photograph from a National Geographic that's like that big, tiny. So, and yeah, I just did it and was like, oh snap, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And thankfully, all the ones that I've tried since then have came out like progressively better. This one up top is the last one that I finished that's like that, and yeah, I'm really pleased with the way it's going. But I don't know, I've been noticing both consciously and subconsciously more and more Native American influences popping up, and I've always been really interested in folk art, and so I've been looking towards that too. Like the patterning, like these triangle elements, is something I've been messing with for a while, and that's always been really interesting to me. And like some of this cross-hatching stuff, like on the bandages, I've seen on Chaco Canyon pottery from, I don't know, like 2,000 years ago or whatever. And that's really interesting to me to see like stuff that I've grown up around. Like, I mean, I'm from New Mexico, and so the Southwest Native American art aesthetic has just been pounded into my head. And like, as touristy as that can be, there's still a lot of really beautiful work that comes out of that tradition. And so it's cool that I've like kind of unconsciously digested that, and I'm like spitting it back out. And I had a show in October that some of these pieces were in, and that really had the first push to, like, towards working on paper for me. And it was, and also moving like smaller. And I don't know, the main thing with that is I just wanted to do more pieces, like produce more stuff, because with every piece I'm like evolving and growing stylistically, and so I was seeing that happen faster, and so I wanted to like accelerate the process. And so this was sort of just like what's happened over the past year basically. And so for this one I was thinking a lot about like the process of maturing, and like I've been out of school for a year, and like some of my friends graduated at the same time, and we sort of like get to this point where it's like, whoa, okay, so now what? And like with that, you're starting to change and evolve as a person, and like things that were important become less important. And I'm really interested in that evolution that occurs like right now in this like mid-20s. The next step for me is to actually get bigger again and keep working with this I've been starting to incorporate figurative elements like drawings taken from photographs done in graphite with all the really tight ink stuff that I do. And I really want to push that further, start incorporating more people and more layers, more materials too, like get back into painting more. And a lot of that's just working larger because painting on this scale is just a pain. But yeah, the closer exchange with smaller work is nice, but also bigger work is cool too because you can stand 20 feet away and just sort of really take it in. I think that's nice. That's something I do like about small pieces, is that it really forces you to get up close and sort of examine that. Because I love seeing the artist's hand in work. Like, even my stuff, which is like pretty tight in terms of the line work and stuff, I still appreciate that if you get close enough you can tell that it was made by a person. That's cool to me. Having that word really like helps that. And I've also always been kind of interested in like semantics and like word games. Like the dual piece, like it's about like conflicting personalities within yourself, which is why it's spelled dual, like two people shooting at each other. But it sounds like dual, D-U-A-L, just the two. And so like just those little things that I think are really interesting. It's something I've tried to play with a lot. The text on that one and a couple of others of these is taken from an old German art history textbook.
It's pretty cool.
And like that, I think gives it sort of a cryptic nature. Like, it's like you know something's there, but you don't necessarily know what it means. So like you want to unravel that. And that was another thing with the text, is I started thinking about like where you're at in your head when you say that, where you're just like, shit, like what happens like when that thought and that expression comes out of you.